We're back. This is John.
And it's Eric.
And it's What If Geeks. We're still no Paul, because it's still the same damn day.
Yep.
What is today anyway? The 24th.
That sounds plausible.
Sure. Was that your dog?
Yeah, he's after the zombies.
All right, nice.
Yeah, so you'll get a little taste, since we don't normally record at my place, but we have to today for whatever reason.
Yeah, personal reasons.
So you'll get a little taste of what I deal with. So somewhere around 11 usually at night to maybe about 2 a.m., my dog fucking barks and growls at the darkness of the backyard.
I get it.
Early on, it was kind of freaky, and I figured there was something back there, but he does it every night, all the time. And what's really funny, I probably do it right now, if I open the door and let him out there, he'll go out there like there's something, and he'll be like, he'll just be like attack mode, and then he'll get out about maybe 5 feet, and he'll just stop, and then he'll go to the bathroom and he'll come back.
And that's it.
That's it. It's like I don't know if he really sees a reflection or something in the pool that he can't identify.
My cat fights her reflection in our sliding glass door because she's mentally retarded. Jesse's dog is 17 now. 17 years old, this bug. Yeah. He's old. And he'll at around 9-ish at night. And it's usually when we're sitting down to watch TV. Here he goes. I heard that. Go for it. There he goes. Get him.
And then he just stops.
Kill.
He stops after about 5 feet of charging. And look at, he's just gonna go. He's gonna go through the doggy door and just go to the bathroom and come back.
He's good. But yeah, the pug will sit there and bark his head off in the living room at nothing. Not even the window. He's just barking at nothing. And so my wife and I have just established that it's because we're sitting down watching TV. And we're into whatever we're watching, and he's like,
trying
time to bark it up, fuckers. Yeah.
Why aren't you paying attention
Just
to me?
want to let you know that I am still alive.
Yep.
So, yeah.
It's been 17 years, but just a reminder, I'm still here.
Just in case you forgot. So, now that we've spoken about dogs, what are we actually talking about today, Eric?
Okay, so this is, so if we were doing the appropriate tribute to zombie movies, we'd have a part 3 and 4. But instead, we're going to have just a part 3.
Yeah, because somebody's got to get up in the morning for work. We're not going to name any names.
And we're going to cram everything.
It rhymes with John.
We're going to cram everything else into this final episode, which hopefully won't run too long. But so we're going to call this, let's just call this, oh shit, the apocalypse cometh. But,
nice. I like that one. Oh shit, I got to write that down.
Okay, but so here's what we're going to copy though.
Well, this is Zombie-Palooza part 3.
Yes. And here's what we want to cover. So we didn't do the sort of memorable moments in zombie films, and I want to do that real quick before we start. We also want to cover we want to cover the zombie etiquette, or what are the rules for zombies, or it's sort of the unanswered questions, right, that you're not quite sure about, and maybe there's different answers in different films.
Yeah, and then we want to throw in our top.
We want to do the What If Geeks rules for the zombie survival, and this is just based solely on how people die in all the movies we've watched, and so the things that you must do to make sure you don't die that way.
Yeah, which at this point, we've watched so many zombie movies that we're like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Well, this is what you said in the last episode. How have you never seen a zombie movie? Because there are
zombie movies do not
exist
exist in zombie movies.
Yes, there are
except
just
for one.
certain things that are just too obvious, and that will form the basis for our What If Geeks rules for the zombie apocalypse. And then, like you said, the favorites.
We'll wrap it up with the favorites and the worst, some of the shit that we've forced ourselves to watch. All right, so moving into the 1,000 Ways to Die.
All right, so in memorable moments in zombie film history, and these don't necessarily have to be memorable today, but memorable in their time, right? So for me, I was starting here with Dawn of the Dead, and there's this
original.
And there's this one scene where one of the biker gang dudes, or whatever the hell they are.
Yeah, it's a biker gang.
Yeah, he can't resist the urge to sit down at the blood pressure machine and drop a quarter in or whatever and test this. But right as he's doing that, because he's not paying any attention, all these zombies are sort of swarming in on his friends and whatever. And then he's trapped in the machine because the cuff is on him.
Is on him. Yeah, he can't get out of there, and the zombies attack him. So his blood pressure goes way up.
Yep. And then it goes to 0, which is the thing. Like they eat him, but the arm is still there in the cuff, and then it goes back to the machine or whatever, and it's like 0. 0 is the blood. Yeah, you're done. So I don't know. Funny. So because that's so long ago, like so early on in the zombie film genre or whatever, that was sort of a unique thing that I thought was funny, and it wasn't really intended to be comedic, but it was comedic. I mean, it
was straight up intended to be comedic.
Well, no, it was intended, but you know what?
There are certain parts of that was just.
I mean, Dawn of the Dead isn't really a comedy, but there are comedic things in it like that.
Yeah, like to jump into the remake. Some of the kills in that thing were, and I'm gonna have to spoil that one. It's like 2004, so go back and watch it and then come back here. But some of the really cool things they did there was like when they made, when they finally decided they got to leave the mall and get out of there. They're gonna go on the boat, right? So they soup up these vehicles like A-Team style, right? And they got like 2 like security buses or whatever. They're gonna soup up with armor plates and whatever they can find, and get out of Dodge, right? But they're surrounded by zombies. So they get out in these vehicles, and they get about halfway out until the vehicles cannot move anymore. And then the one dude climbs up out the escape hatch on top of the vehicle and chucks a propane tank out into the horde of zombies. Mm-hmm. And when one of the zombies picks it up, trying to figure out what the hell was going on, he shoots it with his shotgun, and of course, large explosion. And annihilates like the entire field of zombies in front of them, and there's like burning, writhing corpses everywhere. And then they just like they all just look around like, holy shit! Like they weren't expecting that, So they all had this look like, oh my god! And they go and they continue on their way. But then you continue that later, where like one of the vehicles gets attacked by zombies and it flips, and there's a horrific scene of some of the humans dying too. That it's pretty bad. But yeah, that was one of the really cool ones when they chucked the propane tank in there. Yeah. I'm like, that's kind of brilliant, Like, if you want to get rid of a horde, it's one way to do it,
It is.
Trying to think of some of the other ones I've seen.
Well, so Return of the Living Dead, which we talked about in one of the earlier episodes. There's this scene where the zombie thing has trapped like this teenage girl like in a closet or something. I can't remember. And he's like kind of outside the door, and he's like brains, and then all of her friends show up, and then he's like, oh, more brains. But there's this part where he just like leans over and just like literally takes a bite out of the head of one of the girls or whatever.
Yeah,
it was just like sort of a over the top gore. Like you couldn't even bite through somebody's skull. Give me a fucking break.
Well, and that's one part that I really love about Return of the Living Dead is like, where that was the one like we discussed in the last couple episodes, the branch off between Return of the Living Dead and Night of the Living Dead when they had their falling out there. The Return of the Living Dead was specifically brains, but you can't bite through a skull. Yeah. But somehow these zombies can do it. Yeah. So there's your suspension of disbelief that I keep talking about, where you have to, all right, fine, these zombies can somehow, their teeth can penetrate a human skull. It's the dumbest thing in the world, but at the same time, it's also funny.
Well, so, I'm not even going to go there because we'll go there when we go to the zombie etiquette, but some of it is just completely unrealistic. But, okay, so same year, Day of the Dead, though, third sequel,
yes,
or whatever, to the Night of the Living
Dead. Yeah, ironically,
Dead.
What he did was he put him in the same time as time passes in the real world. Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead.
Oh, I didn't even think. But then it goes into Land of the Dead and.
Well, yeah, he ran out of time.
He ran out of time.
Sunset of the Dead.
Quite literally in some aspects. But there was a Day of the Dead scene where Captain Rhodes or Major Rhodes or whatever the hell his name. I put Captain Rhodes here. I'm not sure if that's right.
Whatever.
But he's getting mobbed by that horde of zombies while everybody else is trying to get away, and they're tearing his guts out, and then he's like, "Choke on him."
Yeah. I love that. That one was really, really cheesy. Out of the three, that was the worst one. But that's where you got Bub.
Bub, yep.
The zombie that they were trying, the scientists were trying to teach to do human shit, and he was kind of picking up on it. And he salutes him on his way out the door. Oh, that was funny. Okay. Anyway, sorry.
Over the top gore because it was a Zomcom. Yeah, that's what we're saying, Zomcom. Shaun of the Dead. The main antagonist, the villain or whatever the hell his name was, like towards the end where he's getting ripped apart by a mob, but there's like fucking blood everywhere and like entrails all over the place, and they're passing his head around. And
yeah.
It's just like the most ridiculous like zombie person eating scene ever. But I mean, that was the point. It was supposed to be comedic, I guess. But
yeah, it was. And then you've also got on here the neighbor's daughter. And
that was the Dawn of the Dead remake, right? That was like one of the opening scenes. It was the opening scene.
The first scenes you get is her working at the hospital, right? She's a nurse at the hospital, right? And you hear, because they're shutting the TVs off or whatever, but you hear they're starting to talk about random things going on, but they're shutting the TVs off and whatever. And she asks where, so and so was from this one room or whatever, and or that they just brought in, like, they just brought in this guy, whatever, and like, yeah, he's up in ICU, and she's like, from a bite, like that, and it creeps into this thing where you don't really hear what the hell is going on, and she goes home, she says, her husband's in bed, it's like early morning. And she lays down next to him, goes to sleep, and the husband wakes up because the bedroom door creaks open, and it's the neighbor girl. Yeah. Which you do see her in the very beginning.
Her mouth is all fucked up, and like you can tell
you see her hanging out before.
Yeah.
Fine, and then you see like her mouth is all ripped apart, like something ripped her mouth apart, and he's like, he jumps up because he thinks like she's hurt and she's in shock, and he's like, oh my god, call an ambulance, and like as he gets close to her.
Yeah,
she just leans in and rips his throat out.
Yeah, and then the wife like barely escapes or something. She's gonna.
She barely escapes him because he turns that quick. Which we can get into some of the rules here of turning. We can get into that here in a minute.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that in a second.
How long it takes to turn, but that is one of the coolest opening zombie scenes because it's small.
Yeah,
so it's personal,
but definitely sets a feeling, a mode, or whatever.
Yeah, it sets an immediate, like, holy shit, something bad is about to happen. Because he turns almost immediately, and he goes for her, and she runs into the bathroom. And you can see, like, she's sitting in the tub panicking, and then that's when he starts throwing herself against the door, and she escapes through the bathroom window. And when she does, that's when she's standing in her front yard, and she sees, like, the whole neighborhood is going crazy. People are attacking people, whatever, so that's when she gets in her car and leaves. But, yeah, so that whole opening section there, starting with... Or fast forward the first 2 minutes. Start with the neighborhood girl, whatever her name is, where she bites the hell out of him. That was a really cool one.
So I also had on my list the Bill Murray scene in Zombieland, where he's faking being a zombie, and then he ends up getting killed. And then as he's like sitting in the chair or whatever, and he's dying, I forget who. It might be Woody Harrelson's character. Ask him if he has any regrets or whatever, and he's like, Garfield maybe. That was great for a whole different reason. It really didn't have anything to do with zombie movie in particular, but just the whole way they played that thing out, where they have this sort of guest star and he's playing himself, and then he ends up getting killed because he's playing a practical joke. My
favorite part of that whole thing, outside of the Garfield thing, is when Woody Harrelson sees him and he realizes it's him. He's like, I just do this so I can go out and hang out and kind of go to the store or whatever. But Woody Harrelson's like, Bill fucking Murray, and he goes, I'm sorry, I know that's not your middle name. He's so stupid in this movie.
Yeah.
But hey, it's all about Twinkies, dude.
He does stupid really well in that movie.
He does.
It's a funny,
like, not stupid, but like, I guess just ignorant,
oblivious.
Yeah,
it really is oblivious to everything that he's not interested in. Really.
yeah. He wants Twinkies, and that's all he cares about. And just like the kind of the dumb hick, I guess. Really, no offense to you dumb hicks out there. And then lastly, we're going to get into our Walking Dead one. There's a lot of Walking Dead moments.
That's what I said.
If you watch The Talking Dead after, which I really do think if you can speed through some of The Walking Dead, and then you and I can just get together and do a Walking Dead breakdown like The Talking Dead, maybe like the next day or something, or sometime within that week. Again, I know it's really going to irritate our wives, but that could be a lot of fun. Like, we have to pick like a show like that and do like a weekly segment on it. Just like The Talking Dead, what they do is they do their zombie kills, right? Mm-hmm. Or they do their in memoriam, but most of it's like the zombies, and it'll be like, biker zombie or this or that. and it shows them all getting killed in the show that happened right before it. But there's a lot of people that get freaking killed in this thing too. The very first one that I remember that was really cool was the well zombie. Do you remember that one? It was when they first get to Herschel's farm. So Rick and Daryl and all those guys, they get to Herschel's farm, right? And they're helping him shore it up and fix it. Because Herschel's still in denial over what the hell is going on. He's like, that these people are sick, right? And they find out that there's a zombie down in the well, and he's bloated.
Oh, yeah,
remember
yeah.
So they decide they gotta, like, Glenn climbs down there and almost gets himself killed, trying to loop a rope around this dude, and they haul him out. And right as they get ready to haul him out, his body rips apart because it's so waterlogged and bloated, and so it contaminates all the water in the well anyway. But yeah, that was really cool. There was like little things like that they did. Let's see what else in there.
Well, I had a bunch of ones. I didn't want to like go over everyone in detail, but I mean, there was a lot of the human moments. You know what I mean? Like humans doing something. You got a lot of good ones on here. Fucking shocked you, like Herschel being decapitated by the governor.
Dale getting disemboweled by the zombie is
because
horrible.
Carl didn't kill it when he had the chance.
It attacks.
Right, and that's just one of those things playing on the human, like, okay, so Carl didn't want to take the risk, and then somebody else died because of it, and he could have just done it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of like, again, that's playing on that human fickleness kind of thing, and what will happen to me because of it. And Carl, of course, commits suicide, which you don't see on screen, that happens off screen, but, I mean, ultimately, he's kind of a kid committing
he's already
suicide, and he's bit, and so what do you do?
Yeah,
and there are several people that several people that do the self, or have somebody else like, please just fucking kill me.
Yeah,
you know, there's plenty of that. But Carl was a weird one because he's like a kid, and you know what I mean. It just played strange. There was the weird C-section, not weird, but there was a C-section scene for Lori when she was having the baby.
Yeah, Judith. Yeah,
and then they have to like do an emergency C-section, and she bleeds out or whatever,
and she dies.
And then she turns, and then. Grimes has to kill her, and you don't see that on
screen.
No,
Carl kills her.
Oh, Carl kills her.
Carl kills her.
Oh, you're right. It was Carl.
Yeah,
but
again,
you
Rick
don't
goes
see it
down
on
looking
scene,
for her, and he finds that
it.
zombie that ate her. Now, you got on here one of the worst ones, so I kind of want to skip this one.
I was going to this one.
I want to skip it.
I was saving it for last.
Okay.
Are you talking about this one right here?
No.
Oh, which one are you talking about?
I'm talking about the one right before it. This one.
Oh, okay.
I want to save that one just because I want to talk about how it was shot.
Okay, so before we get to that one then, for me, one of the most like devastating moments in this show, again, has nothing to do with zombies, was when Negan bashed Glenn's head in with the fucking bat.
Now here was some setup, because this was very controversial for fans of the show. They set it up was season 6, right? Because Negan's been around for a while.
Right.
The end of season 6, they're surrounded by Negan, or it was maybe the mid-season, I forget. But it was the end of something. It was where they had a break. So either the end of the season or the end of the mid-season. Somebody correct me. But here comes Negan. He comes out, and he's got them all on their knees. And then he does his whole speech, and then it cuts to the camera looking directly at him, and he swings the bat down. And you hear people screaming, but you just see like the camera fades out like it's like you're actually the person getting hit, right? So, and then it cuts to black, and that's the end of it.
And it's the start of the next season where they show...
That's when you finally see it. And it killed because fans were in an uproar that it ended that way. I kind of liked it. I kind of understood what their aggravation was. I get it. You know, a lot of pent-up whatever. I had read the comic. Remember, I read all of the comic. The comic is now over as of issue 193 a couple months ago. It just ended, but up until that point, like I read the comic. That was one of the ones I read in my compilation ones, and it was a really good issue. And what they did in this series was, or in this episode, when they brought it back anyway, they changed up a couple of things in the comic. So I'm going to spoil a little bit of it for you guys if you have not watched it yet. Abraham gets hit first with the bat in the show. And that never happens in the comic. And that will actually... More shit changes in the show because of that later. We can get into that later when we do a Walking Dead discussion, me and Eric. But Abraham takes it first. And it's because Daryl jumps up and Negan tells him, don't do it again, or, I'm going to make it worse. And because Daryl kind of, he goes after him or whatever, Negan tells him, well, look, I warned you that if you try to interfere again, it was going to be worse. And he gives this whole part of a speech, and you almost don't see that part coming, because in the comic it is Glenn, and once he's killed Abraham, then you're like, oh well, shit, okay, they went a different route with it. But I knew it was coming because he started talking shit to Daryl about, I warned you not to get up, and then he said, well, back to it, and he swings around and just cracks Glenn right in his fucking head, and it happens so quick that you're like, holy shit, and it's like gruesome because they show it. And then he hits him a couple times, or he hits him so hard that first time, whatever. But they show this whole thing where Glenn sits up and tries to talk to Maggie. And it's legit. Like, there are things that happen within The Walking Dead, and we can get further into it when we do a Walking Dead episode, me and you. There are things that happen in the comic book that this TV show kind of goes in and out of. And sometimes they get specific scenes right out of the comic book. This is one of them, where he starts with the Maggie, right? That whole shit where he can't barely talk.
Yeah.
That's right out of the comic. And he looks almost just like he did in the comic, with his eye hanging out, whatever. And Negan's reaction, like where he's like, oh shit, you took that one like a champ, right? That whole thing. The entire thing is right out of the comic. The only thing is, in the comic, the only difference between Negan on the show and Negan in the comic is, in the comic, he's dropping F-bombs left and right. And something that I really appreciated they did, and I found it by accident after the Glenn episode, after this episode, right? Apparently, Kirkman and all those guys, Nicotero, they shot that entire scene a few times, right? So that nobody knew what the hell was going to happen. But one of the times they shot it, they let Jeffrey Dean Morgan go all out, go full ham on this thing, and go just like the comic, where he's like, what in the fuckity fuck is all of this? And he does it, right? Just like he did in the comic. So I got to get you the comic where this scene happens, let you read it, and then I got to find that on YouTube and let you watch it.
It's like a deleted scene or something.
Yeah, it's I found it on YouTube, but it's legit. It's not even like someone's pausing it and like inserting words. No, he filmed a take that was as close to word for word out of the comic as you could possibly get, and it was amazing. And I was like, dude, if this was like not on AMC, you can see how much better he'd be as the character, because like Morgan leans all the way the hell into this damn character.
No, he does.
No pun intended.
He's
the Negan lean.
Yeah. He's imposing.
Yeah.
Even without all the cursing or whatever.
Yeah, it's because he's maniacal.
Yeah.
He's psychotic. But to an extent, because they do start to humanize him a little bit. And you'll get into that when you start to get into the newer shit. But so I'm not going to spoil anything. But yeah, that scene there was epic. But the one I asked you to hold on to, is the barn scene at Herschel's.
Yeah.
So now this whole thing, this leads up with, there's two main story arcs in this season that are happening. One, the subtle one, is Herschel keeps saying that these people are sick. These are my neighbors. They're sick, right? And you know that Otis is going out around the farm doing something, and you don't know what. The second thing is Sophia, Carol's daughter, has been missing. And Daryl and Rick and whoever, they've been looking for her. Daryl's all over the place looking for her, trying to find this kid. She ran away from a zombie, got separated from Rick, and she was out in the swamps, whatever, running away. So, toward the end of the season, they show Herschel says, well, we've been taking our neighbors and putting them in the barn. So that's what Otis has been doing. He's been going out, he's finding these walkers because they think they're sick, or because Herschel believes they're sick, and he's hiding them in the barn. So our group, the survivors, whatever you want to call them, led by Shane. Shane is a big protagonist in this part of it. He's like, no, they're not sick, and something's got to be done about them. So, basically instigating an entire fight with Herschel, he goes off on his own. Well, not on his own. He's got the whole group of people with him, but he runs ahead and kind of pushes Herschel out of the way and goes over and cuts the lock on this barn. And immediately, the walkers start coming out. So right away, the survivors start shooting them. Right?
Yep.
And Herschel is like horrified because he thinks they're sick and they're his neighbors and whatever. And he admits later he's lying to himself. But there's this whole thing there where the survivors do what the survivors do, and they kill all these walkers, right? And everything is real quiet. And then they cut this shot to inside the barn, where the doors are cracked open, and you hear kind of a breathing type of sound, and you see a small body step into the light from the inside of the barn. And you're like, holy shit, Sophia's been hiding in this barn, right? And then it flips to the outside of the barn as she walks out, and you realize that she got bit. And
fully
she was turned,
zombified, yep.
And Otis had found her and stuck her in the barn too as a zombie. And like you see, like she was like, her shoulders kind of ripped up or whatever, so she got bit on the shoulder and torn apart. And she comes staggering out. And, of course, Carol drops to her knees and Daryl's holding her or whatever. And falls down to, at this point, because Shane's been talking all his shit, he can't even do it. He's just staring at the kid. And Rick steps up and does what has to be done. And there's that shot where it pans back from her, and it's just like, you can always see their silhouettes in the sunlight. And he raises his Colt and he puts one on her head. But it's a really fucked up scene.
It is,
especially you take this kid that you've been watching in this show, where it's one of those shows where typically you figure a lot of the kids that you see on the show should be perfectly fine, and they're not.
Yeah,
they're not. And the show does it a few times later, but this is like the one that really sticks with you, where this kid, like they've been pushing and pushing and pushing to find this kid, and they find her, and this whole time she's been a zombie anyway.
And then they're basically forced to kill her.
Yeah.
Right away. Like, they can't even do anything. Just kill her or be dead yourself.
They don't even have a time to say goodbye. So she's coming, so Rick steps in and does what has to be done. So, that's a really powerful scene. I like that one a lot.
It is. Did you have another one, or was that...
No, that was one I wanted to save. I know there are a handful of other really cool shots in these movies that are...
Oh, there probably are. Even in this show. Because
28 days later. 28 days later.
Huh?
Because this is very similar to Walking Dead. Wakes up out of a coma, right?
Yep, in the hospital.
Yeah, dude wakes up in the hospital, has no idea what's going on. All this shit happened around him. But that one, the part that's cool about that one is where Walking Dead kind of speeds you into, Rick trying to find his family. This dude is just walking around trying to find out what the fuck happened. And there's that shot where he's in London and there's nothing, and he's yelling, "Hello!"
Yeah. That's after he gets out of the hospital. The whole city's abandoned.
Yeah.
He goes into a convenience store or something and
finds some food to eat
or something.
And shit. Yeah. He's got a pillowcase full of Pepsis.
Yeah, but the streets are empty and
it's deserted. The trash is
and he doesn't understand either at this point.
He had no idea. And he goes all over. That whole setup is really cool.
Yeah,
they filmed that really well. And then he gets to the church and he sees the priest, and the priest is turned into a rage zombie and comes at him. And he's like, he still doesn't know, but he just knows. He's like, remember, he's like, Father, stop. And the guy just comes at him. So he cracks him in the face with a sack full of soda. But it was that one was really cool. The editing on that was really cool.
The sequels to that, by the way, were shit, but I don't want to get into that.
28 weeks later?
Well, 28 weeks later was maybe okay.
That's the only one that was there.
Okay. Wasn't there another?
No. I keep waiting for them to do a 28 months later.
No, I don't know about that.
No, 28 weeks later, it had Jeremy Renner in it, man. Hawkeye was in that.
Dude, maybe I need to rewatch it, but I felt
like
that wasn't very good.
It wasn't as good as 28 Days Later, but essentially it's like there is a human holdout, and there's some military involvement, whatever, and I don't know. There's a whole thing in there. That, like they've sectioned off an area that's free of rage virus, but one still eventually gets in, and all hell breaks loose.
Maybe I need to rewatch it. I don't know. I'll take your word on it.
Like I said, again, I might need to rewatch it too, because after watching some of the really cool cinema that we've been watching lately, you know.
All right, so I think if that unless you have any other scenes that you want to talk about, all right, so we got that out of the way. We already burnt half of our time, but we're just going to keep going anyway. No, I'm sure we did. You don't even have to look.
Oh yeah, we're at 30 minutes already. Yeah, no, keep going, keep going.
All right, so the next thing, which
this will not make 45 minutes.
Yeah, so I really quickly hashed out between the two episodes we were recording was the zombie etiquette thing, because John said something about freezing zombies that made me think, oh yeah.
Yeah, I said like if you moved north, because I've seen it somewhere in some type of fiction where survivors have moved to the north where it snows. And the zombies get stuck. They freeze. Their bodies freeze up and they can't move. But the humans have to wait for them to, like, they have to be wary of them thawing out later. So the smart thing to do would be like to go out in the freezing cold and try to kill these things while they're stuck.
So zombies can freeze and unthaw. I think that's where this was going. So we've got a whole list of should it be, can it be, sort of.
Yeah, and I guess
things
there's technically no right and wrong answer here.
There's no right and wrong answers to any of this, but I think we can just do like a general consensus, because what it's going to do is feed into our rules for zombie survival. Yeah. And there may be some things where you say, okay, well that couldn't happen, so we don't need to have that as part
so I think
rules.
Like the very first one, although we've already done this one, so they can freeze, that's fine. But I think the first key rule to all of this is the biggest argument of, you know, what's your favorite type of zombie? Fast or slow? And I've always been of the mindset that, like I said earlier, where if you're fresh, like Dawn of the Dead, 2004,
yep,
you immediately, like, you get bit and you die. You turn, you're going to be still fast because your body is still fresh. But if you're not necessarily crawling out of the grave, because none of these current movies really have them crawling out of the grave, that's Return of the Living Dead. But if you are a deteriorated type of body, I think you'll be slower. Or over time, your body will be slower.
So
maybe you can move in spurts.
Yeah, I don't think any movie has really addressed this. But if you want to be like pseudo-scientifically realistic, okay, sure. I'm being really generous here. Don't hold this against me, but.
Yeah, because we'll skip over the fact that if they eat something, where does it go?
Yeah, so let's assume for a minute that they eat things, and from that they get energy just like a regular human would, right? So there should be this thing where
we'll throw in a little voodoo in there where it just magically gets.
Forget about the voodoo for a minute, because that can explain away everything. But in the viral situation where they're trying to be scientific about zombie, which is most of the modern zombie stuff, if they eat something, fine, they get some energy, right? But I think you're right. When they're early zombie, when they haven't deteriorated at all, when they're okay, they should be able to sprint along and do whatever, and do what a normal human could do, perhaps. Or maybe even a little more, because they probably don't feel pain or anything like that. So maybe they can push past the edge. And
there is no pain. They just go, because they're dead. Yeah. But because it's only like, if you look at some of the other movies where they have like, they've actually taken scans of a zombie's brain. There's only that one little primal part that's like feeding. That's the only part that's like technically alive, and it keeps their motor functions going or whatever. However they try to explain it away, right? So that works. But I think if they do the fast-moving zombie and the slow-moving zombie, now you have two threats, right?
You do.
Because the biggest threat of the slow-moving zombie is there's so many of them. Well, that's when you get in trouble, because a lot of times, when you have just
a mob,
maybe say, if you have like 3 or 4 of them, and you, let's say like there was a zombie apocalypse, and you and I are here, and there's 3 or 4 outside, we can outrun them and get to a car and go somewhere. You know what I mean? Like we can push them over and get away if there's only a few. But once they start to herd together like they do in a lot of these shows now, which is a good mindset, then they become a problem. But the faster ones, the younger zombies, I guess, fresh zombies, they become a real problem because they're fast too. So that's
all right. So
cool.
When we make a zombie movie, we have to have this
we got both,
pseudo-scientific Early zombies have it. Zombies maybe that have recently eaten and have gotten some energy might have a
little boost
or something. But for the most part, they're still rotting away. And if they're not eating human flesh or whatever, then they're continuing to rot. And it's just they're eventually going to die off. And I think the way it should work is that rot will happen naturally in whatever way it happens, but eventually it'll hit the brainstem or the brain, and that'll die off, and then the zombie's dead, and it just doesn't exist anymore. And who knows if that takes 30, 40 years. Remember, they're not doing anything. When they're not killing people, when they're not lumbering around, they're really doing nothing, right? So unlike you and I that have to go work all day, and like that process of deteriorating and using up all your energy before your body starts to eat its own muscle and fat could take a while for a zombie. But it's not going to take 20 years, right? It's going to take like a year maybe at the worst case. Yeah. It's probably months, to be honest with you. So if we ever make a zombie movie, that's where it's headed, okay?
All right, cool.
All right. I don't think we're ever going to make a zombie movie, but
probably not.
All right,
we can barely make a podcast.
Yeah. So if it's viral, which is really popular lately, and there's always people looking for a cure. We talked about Herschel. Right? What happens when you fucking cure these people?
I love this.
Right? When somebody's missing half their fucking face and you cure them of the zombie plague, I mean, they're still missing half their fucking face. Like, they're gonna die. I mean, like, what are you gonna do for them, right? So how far does that go? Does the damage heal? No, that's not fucking realistic.
No.
Right? So why do they spend so much time?
Warm Bodies, it makes you laugh because he actually, spoiler alert, becomes human again. Now, granted, throughout the entire thing, he's not, like, wounded like that. You know what I mean? So, his face is fine, whatever. So, I get it. But, like, there's that thing. If they don't eat for so long, they devolve into what they call, even the zombies call bonies. It's just skeletons running around.
Bonies.
Which is funny because it's only skeletons running around. So, it completely, like, negates everything we just talked about. Because it's just skeletons running around. So, now it's, like, straight supernatural shit. But in that world, it kind of works because it's like, well, if you don't eat, you eventually become these things. And now these things are just like psychotic. They're evil. Like they're just attacking everything. They'll even attack zombies.
So, so this is just we'll let this one go. But I mean,
that's impossible.
Even
they're gonna die.
Even in a situation where they haven't rotted away or whatever, and they're not missing anything.
The only thing the cure is helping is if somebody just got bit and it's like just a bite mark.
Yeah,
or that's the only thing the cure is helping.
And then even that. Oh, that brings up another question that isn't on my list, and I'm going to write it right now. But there are a few movies where people get bit or scratched, and they fucking lop off their arm or whatever, and that stops it.
Travel through
stops it from happening.
And I'm okay with that.
Okay,
I'm okay with that. I get it because it's got to travel through the blood.
How long do you think that takes? I mean, the blood in your fingertip. How long do you think it takes before it gets back to your heart?
I don't know.
It's not very long.
Okay.
I mean, maybe if you do it really quick, or if you tie off a tourniquet or something.
Movie magic. I don't know. Well, because here's the other thing too. Because we'll go into that one too. How long does it take someone to turn?
Well,
because it varies. It even varies within the movies. Within like one specific movie. One person will turn in about 15 seconds. The other one will turn after an hour. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Any kind of consistency. Now, I can see, okay, if someone got bit 2 or 3 times, they turn quicker. Or if it's a bloodstream thing, If it's closer to the heart.
It could be like venom from a snake or whatever. Right. If you get bit 3 times, you're going to be dead a lot faster.
Yeah. I can get that. But I get like Walking Dead. Yeah. Sometimes even like one of my favorite shows. Sometimes they screw it up.
Oh, there was a prison scene one where it was like days for that guy to eventually die and turn.
Yeah,
right?
And then there's other ones where like the girl, one girl, the sister gets bit, and Andrea's sister in the early season, in the early seasons, and like she's hugging on her or whatever, and then like they're like, okay, we gotta go, leave her, and the kid sits up, like 2 seconds later. Like, right after they back away from her, she sits up, and they got to put her down. So, it's like there's no consistency there. Like,
there isn't.
Yeah, and unless there is, and I'm missing it, but I'm pretty sure there's not. It's just, they turn as fast as the script needs them to.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, there's definitely
So, I would like some consistency there.
Storytelling convenience or some script convenience in that, for sure. And there's also another, again, if we're going to try to stay pseudo-scientific, when you die, your heart stops beating, right? So whatever virus or whatever it is that's causing you to turn, it has to have infected your whole body, or I guess your brain, at that point before you've already died, right? That has to be established. Like,
all right, Walking Dead, everyone's got it.
Yeah. Okay. So that works, right? But I mean, you can't just be bit and die 10 seconds later and then return as a zombie, because there's no way that virus traveled from your arm to your brain and fucking infected everything at that point. Your heart just stopped beating. Where did it go? You know, it infected your arm, and then how did it get to your brain?
Yeah. Well, that's like why I do like some of the ones where the show, what the hell was it? It was Dawn of the Dead, or whatever it was. One of them where like they're walking a gurney with a sheet over it, because someone's dead, and that they vaguely say briefly, like there's a news thing going, there are reports of dead people getting up and walking, and as these people are walking this gurney, the sheet twitches because the body's starting to reanimate, and it becomes this whole thing. I think that was Dawn of the Dead. So I guess if it I don't know, I guess at some point, though, there's still got to be something supernatural about this damn virus, or it's just something maybe it's a new science we don't understand, like splitting the atom or some other shit. Like, decades ago, we didn't know about half the shit we know now. You know what I mean? It could be something new that, that's in the zombie virus that makes it travel. Like the virus itself stays alive within the dead. Well, no, look, there's insects that do it. They do it now. They make zombies. Insects that burrow into something, and the parasites they'll burrow into like insects and small animals, and the body is dead, but they're making it function.
So, okay, I was gonna bring up something similar, which exists. It's a fungus, like a mushroom, that infects ants, and it turns the ant into a zombie, and the ant's only purpose is to basically go to the right spot where it can infect more ants, and then it will die there, and then the fungus will pop up out of the ant's brain, like no bullshit. It'll just pop up, and it'll infect other ants, and that's how it spreads itself.
It's science,
called,
people.
Yeah, it's called Ophiocordyceps. I'll never be able to pronounce this. Ophiocordyceps. That's what I think it is. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, there's a zombie ant fungus, and then there's another one. It's even more complicated because it has multiple stages, and it needs to be in different animals for it, where it infects an ant climbs up on a piece of grass, it grows this thing out of it, a cow fucking eats it, and then it gets into the cow's stomach, and it can continue its life cycle that way.
See?
Like, there is crazy shit that really exists that is true zombie shit.
You know what this is, right? Yeah, this is Mother Nature is sick of our shit, and we are going to have a zombie apocalypse, because it's the only thing that's going to kill us off. If you think I'm kidding, look, Mother Nature is really tired of us fucking around, okay? I truly believe this shit. That's why climate change is big. Bigger earthquakes are happening. We've got, 25 named hurricanes this year? Or tropical storms. It's getting more and more intense around here. Of course, like the last one was named Karen. You see that one? Yeah.
Karen.
Yeah, she's going to be here, but she's going to swing through. She's picking up a Starbucks and she's complaining to the manager on her way over here. Shut up, Karen. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's I'm sorry. It's actually a fluke. It's kind of worm that does the latter, more complicated thing of infecting ants and then cows and fucking nut shit, man. I don't.
This shit really exists.
Just Google zombie ants, and you'll really appreciate nature has really found a way to turn creatures into zombies for the purpose of reproduction, though, not to eat brains. But
give it a minute.
It's fucking amazing.
It'll take that one ant.
So I got way off topic here, and
we
have like 50 more things. Okay, so kill a zombie. In most cases, it's either decapitation or it's bullets to the brain to pay homage to Zombie Double Tap that's coming out on October 11th. Two shots just to make sure.
Well, yeah.
So how do you really kill them? Is it lop the head off? Is it 2 bullets to the brain? Could you kill them some other way?
Well, the lop the head off thing.
Burn them is another way we've seen in zombie films.
Well, it depends. Because lopping the head off, as we've seen in like Walking Dead and a couple others, if you don't penetrate whatever there's a connection somewhere behind the base of the skull.
So there's a brain stem, like the sort of
Yeah, that
raw,
if the
primitive
whole
part
head
of the
gets
human
cut off,
brain.
right? If the whole head gets cut off and that's not terminated or that's not punctured or penetrated at all, then the head itself can still function and bite. And you see that in Walking Dead. Like I said last episode, Governor had fish tanks full of them or whatever. And you see it in a couple other things. But like Return of the Living Dead, completely different. Like, but again, this is going back to like Return of the Living Dead is the more humorous and fictional of the zombie movies. I can't believe I just said that. But where that shit, burning them doesn't matter because they just go up into the atmosphere. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
They burned a bunch of the bodies. They go up into the clouds. They form rain. The rain comes down.
Oh yeah,
forms more zombies. Yeah. Everything.
God, that's so
Nothing
ridiculous.
works. Nothing
But
works.
That's Comzom ridiculous though. Zomcom.
True.
Zomcom. Comzom. Zomcom. No.
Something like that. Yeah.
Ramazama.
Ramalama. So yeah. So
Are we
it
on to
depends.
M. Night Shyamalan now?
Shyamalan. What a twist. That's what he says right after the shit goes up in the clouds. What a twist. All right. So yeah. So kill. I think personally, as long as you do something to penetrate that primal cortex, then you're good.
All right. So,
however, I do want to point out that in Walking Dead, these people are very good at hitting that perfect spot every time.
Yeah,
once
with
in a
a
blue
baseball
moon,
bat swing or
whatever it is,
golf
they
club
constantly
or a knife to the front of the forehead.
These guys are amazing doing it. Yeah, they do it all the time.
A single arrow.
Yeah, there's one or two that will miss. Every once in a while, something happens and they miss, and you're like, "Oh, what you gonna do now? You're not that great." But yeah, typically they hit that one shot and they're killing zombies left and right, just like, and everybody's good at it. You're like, really? Come on.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
Yep. What else you got?
All right. So next question is about how you get infected. Right? Is it a bite? Is it a scratch? Is it blood? Is it airborne virus transfer? We've seen all of these things in the movies, so.
Yeah, like I like the Walking Dead thing where everyone's infected. That's kind of a neat spin on it.
Yep.
And outside of that, though, I think like all right, the rage virus thing where it kind of like any drop of blood gets in your system, it's kind of cool.
Well,
but
certainly,
it also throws off the other ones where like you're watching a zombie movie and it doesn't take effect, but you're so used to seeing it in stuff like 28 Days Later.
So we were talking about script convenience earlier, right? So. When you want to have upfront confrontations with zombies and you want people to smash their heads with bats or stab them in the forehead or whatever kind of thing, right? You can't have the blood thing, right? Because then everybody would be infected 10 seconds into the fucking movie, right? You couldn't do anything. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if it's viral, the blood transfer thing makes more sense than anything, right? Because there are viruses that transfer in blood and do not transfer in saliva or skin cells or anything like that. But then we have all this bite and scratch stuff that's a legitimate way to transfer in the other movies. And it doesn't really make sense that would be how it transferred, but not blood.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like people with AIDS could swap spit all day and that they would never pass it on to somebody, or it's very unlikely. But if they bleed on somebody, yeah, bye.
Right, yeah. So yeah, I would agree with the bite, definitely, obviously. There's also the flip side of that too, is where you have these zombies that are looking to eat flesh, right? How many times like someone will get bit, and I guess unless you drive them away, they're gonna keep eating until there's nothing there, right? But there's something like, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. There's not many times where you figure out how many times did they just keep eating. You know what I mean? And then the body still reanimates, or what's, you know what I mean? What's the breaking point to where they've eaten enough of that body
you've
and
like
it's
90% of this thing? Come on. And I think the answer is if the brain stem is the control point, then, and they don't eat brains, because in some they eat brains,
right?
But if they don't eat the brains, then I suppose it could reanimate, even with
it's kind of weird,
a muscleless body.
You do see in some things, you see like half a body moving around or whatever.
But you wouldn't think they wouldn't move though. If they had been eaten by a horde and all that was left was the head and the brain, and there's pretty much no muscle or guts or anything. Right. Like, it would just lay there and go, Oh, it couldn't even make noise because it doesn't have any lungs.
right, yeah. Voice box is ripped out.
Yeah.
I don't know. So there you go. I think I just thought of a new one. Holy shit. There you go, zombie people. Figure that one out. At what point do they keep eating it until it can't become a zombie? Oh.
Yeah, can't come back. At what point can it not come back?
What a twist.
What a twist.
Go watch Robot Chicken and find the Shyamalan episode. That's where I get that from.
So if we accept that bites and scratches and things are the end-all, be-all, and you can get infected that way.
I don't like the scratches or the blood thing like you were talking about with 28 Days Later, because that means that everyone's going to be a zombie in about 5 seconds.
They will.
It's too quick.
They will.
I think a legit bite.
So let's say bite scratch then, right? Or serious scratch where they like open flesh up and you're bleeding everywhere and your insides are exposed. Okay, sure. So let's say that's it. So there's a particular scene in it's in the Walking Dead movie, but it's also from the original comics, where Michonne is walking around with 2 zombies, but she's removed the jaws and the arms.
Yeah, so she can't get bit or scratched.
Are they really not a threat? Because her zombies, remember, don't even try to go after her or anybody else. They just sort of chill there and just be subservient because they know they can't bite somebody. Have they lost their drive to just try? Or
right? Yeah. Now that is the thing. They do just walk with her.
Yeah, they just go along with it, right? And that protects her. But does that really make sense? Would they just give up at that point? Fuck, you cut off my jaw and you cut off my arms, and I knew a bite and a scratch was the only way I could turn you, and now I'm done. Thanks.
Right? Yeah. Because they still have a hunger, though. They're driven by hunger.
Right, if they have a one-track mind and they're only after one thing, which is eating human flesh or whatever, then
they don't know that they're.
Why do they just chill behind her? Like
they wouldn't know that they're.
Yeah, they would have no idea.
Jaws are.
They can be missing half their face, 2 legs, an arm, and they still go. Yeah. So why do hers leave it alone? I don't know,
but you do know, at least in the comic book. I don't know if they. I think they established it in the show too. But in the comic book, you know who the 2 that you first see her with are? Her boyfriend and his friend.
She might say that in the show, but I don't really remember.
Yeah. They're like her boyfriend and his friend, or her boyfriend and his brother or something. Yeah, they get bit and they come after her and she kills them both.
Okay, so this brings me to another thing. So the reason Michonne has them with her is...
Camouflage.
So can you hide...
I like that.
In the zombie
I like that idea because they do it in the show a couple times.
Yeah, so they do. So there's an early
But it doesn't always work because you make noise.
You're right.
You make noise, and they go, what the fuck is that?
I think if you take the culmination of all movies, what's established is zombies have 2 heightened senses. 1, hearing. 2, smell.
Yep.
And that smell is specific to, are you human or are you a zombie? Because they never eat other zombies. Never. Right. In any movie ever, they don't eat other zombies.
No.
So they can recognize them somehow.
They do eat animals.
They do sometimes eat animals, and that is actually another... You got to stop adding because you have to go to bed. That is actually another one that we need to address.
There are some of these things we can throw onto like the website.
Okay.
We do have vlogs that we can do, or blogs.
Honestly, I'm having a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, I know. So am I. You're a dick.
To just keep going.
We can get together later in the week and finish this. We've got 4 fucking episodes that we have to release all week. This is the most content you guys are going to get in 1 fucking week from us ever. Don't expect
John says that now, but...
I know, yeah.
This is 2 lengthy episodes. We've just busted them up.
Yeah, we've broken them up to appease.
We also fairly started late because... my kids were dicking around and my wife's out of town. And,
your kids were missing?
Yeah, something like that.
We're kidding. They were hanging out with my kid across the neighborhood.
So, where were we? Can you camouflage? So in some of these movies,
I think yes.
People rub zombie guts on them and they can just walk in the crowd and it's no big deal. There's some other ones where they try to like mope around and be like, and then the zombies realize it. I think that was maybe early Dawn of the Dead.
It was something. I forget.
I can't remember what movie it was, where they try to fake it like they're zombies and the zombies recognize it.
But like Bill Murray
quick.
does it in Zombieland. He just dresses like one.
Yeah.
So he does. He just makes himself up and he walks around.
So can you hide in the crowd? I think if zombies have a one-track mind and they just want to eat flesh and they're smelling out human flesh, that might make some sense.
Well,
think about
hunters.
Yeah.
They mask their scent.
They do.
Okay.
No, I said that can make some sense.
That makes sense.
As long as you accept that the zombie virus isn't transferring to you through blood, because then it makes no sense to cover yourself with zombie guts, because then you'll just become one.
Yeah. Yes, I would say it only goes through bite, and then you can cover yourself with zombie guts and you're all right.
All right. So next question I have, it revolves around the rotting thing, but how strong are zombies really? Because there are zombies that are missing half their face, yet they bite people through their shoulder and take huge chunks out, and your face muscles are what let you bite things. So, and there's also super strength zombies that we see that overwhelm people for no apparent reason. And how strong are they really? Is there supernatural strength? Are they human strength? Are they human strength, but they just don't realize how much they're hurting themselves, like the atrophy and whatever?
Sure, yeah, they don't.
Yeah, like they just pay no attention to the pain of how much they're straining muscles.
There are humans that don't feel pain, where they have to be very careful because they'll burn themselves.
Yeah, and there are people that get into emergency situations and they get adrenaline buildup and they do something that your muscles could do, but under normal circumstances, you'd tear something or you'd break a bone, but they don't somehow.
Yeah, maybe that is what these zombies are doing. Because, as a fat guy, when I see a steak, I'm just saying.
All right, so they could have a superhuman moment, but it's in the sense of sort of early comic superhuman. Like, I'm just a normal human, but I can get a moment beyond or something, right? Yeah, because I don't pay attention. Can they breathe underwater? Sure,
they don't breathe.
They don't breathe, right? So that's what I think. But the funny thing about that trope, I guess, is that zombies constantly fucking breathe and groan and moan and brains in some things, but in other times they're just
make noises because they're feral or whatever. But
so they're clearly using their lungs, I guess, just not to breathe, only to make stupid noises.
And I bet that if they made noises immediately out of walking out of that lake, like Land of the Dead did it, they invaded the city by coming from one side of it was like New York City, like Staten Island to Manhattan, right? They instead of they can't take a ferry, everything's closed off.
Yeah, they just walk across the bottom of
They walked under the water and just came back up.
So an island is not safety.
I would think that maybe the first time you hear them grunt, it's more like Merman from He-Man, getting that water out of their lungs, but
All right, so
that was the stupidest fucking thing I've ever said.
So last one, and we'll close this out, is about animals, and you brought this up, and I'm sorry we'd be done already if you didn't bring it up. But there's actually two separate questions here. One, can zombies eat animals to sustain themselves? Because in some shows they do. They kill deer or rats or whatever, and they gobble them up. And that's sustaining him. And then there are even other ones, maybe we could say Resident Evil, where there are like zombie dogs and weird shit like that. Yeah. So can animals turn too?
Like you don't see zombie animals in shit like The Walking Dead or whatever.
No.
Let's say you eliminate the zombie animals, because there have been in some more for comedic effect.
You could take this scientific though and say most viruses that we get as humans, they can't transfer to animals. Yeah. You can't give your dog a cold.
But then if you want to flip it around for what you said as far as nourishment for a zombie, what if you take it to the flip side of Interview with a Vampire, where Lestat tells what's-his-face, he's been living off of rats. It's not as good, but it can sustain him long enough. And and he hates it, but he'll do it long enough to stay alive till he can get to humans.
So it's not like the right vitamins and minerals to nourish them, but it'll work to do something short term, and that would make perfect scientific sense. We have a lot of commonalities with other animals. That could work.
That works. I like it.
All right. So let's end that. So this episode was
please, for the love of God.
Yeah, please, for the love of God. So this episode was, I think, originally intended to be 1,000 Ways to Die, and we did cover the memorable death moments in zombie movies, and
then we jumped right into
the zombie etiquette. So I don't know what we'll call this one now. We have to rename it.
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
All right,
we'll figure that part out tomorrow. We'll figure out the naming of the episodes tomorrow.
All right, so we're going to jump into the last one here, which will be...
fucking stay tuned, assholes. This one hit an hour, so I don't know what the hell this next one's going to be.
John's dead. So, rules for zombie survival and our favorite movies, and then we will stop zombie-paloozing you, I promise. And I'm also making this promise to John as he's wanting to stab me with a knife right now.
But... It's all good. I'm enjoying it, too. It's just, we probably should have picked two nights to record.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So let us know what you think of this episode. Everything's running together now. We're on episode 4. Just tell me what the fuck you think of the Zombie-Palooza so far. And hit us up, whatifgeeks.com, whatifgeeks@gmail.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever else we figure out how to get the show out there. All right. Later, guys.